actually written on them. And with Yager in particular, he also sort of spun a sort of alternative history of his own life. He was a very prolific maker, of course, of these tapes, and constantly attended motivational rallies and that sort of thing. And he gave repeatedly this very sort of Horatio Alger story of his own origins, that he was, from Fulton, New York, and he was a beer salesman, and he was very poor, and all this kind of stuff. And then he found the Amway miracle and became rich and successful. And now supposedly he's teaching all the Amway distributors to go after their dreams and become as rich as he was. That story was clearly false, or at least large portions of that story were false. But the way he talked about himself and the way that he was generally talked about in any source I could find reminded me of nothing so much as trying to figure out the real events of like medieval saints or people about whom hagiographies had been written. These very mysterious figures whose real lives have been subsumed by kind of a public persona that tells a story, and no one is there to push back against that story. And so I was very interested, and I was shocked that I went to look up what was written on Dexter Yager. So of course I went to Wikipedia and typed, he doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, which astonishes me, because I think Dexter Yager is one of the most audacious grifters in recent American history. He made hundreds of millions of dollars on the Tool Scam, and he also had an incredible reach into the political life of the political history of the United States. He was very good friends with Jim Baker and others in the Christian right. One of his friends, I'm sure we're going to talk about him, was Doug Weed, who was the conduit between the religious right and the Bush family. So these people have deep roots into the political culture, religious history, and they're unknown in history, virtually unknown. So I started doing some work and trying to research them and figure out what happened. And I came across this amazing story, not just the origin of the Tools cult, but also there was first of all, you have to understand that the Tools business is separate from the Amway business. The Amway multi-level marketing business is run by totally different people. And the Tools business is sort of like a pyramid that kind of hides in the shadow of Amway. And it's very easy for an outsider who doesn't really understand the structures to conflate the two of them and assume that they're the same thing, or to assume that the Tools business is kind of a minor sort of detail, a sort of a caboose that follows behind the Amway multi-level marketing business. And the truth is actually very different, that the Tools business absolutely dwarfs, in terms of money, absolutely dwarfs the Amway business. And they exist, these two structures exist kind of symbiotically, but they really don't like each other. And there was a period, particularly in the early 1980s, in which they were in open conflict with each other. And I was very fascinated by that story, and my video, which is called The Tools Cult: History of the Amway Motivational Tape Scam, tells the story of how the Tools business was built beginning in the 1960s by Yager and Britt, and then continues on through the competition and the basically kind of war between the Amway Corporation